The diesel motorcycle does exist and it is American. Well, kind of. The bad news is, well, hold on a second, we'll get to the bad news. This is the diesel KLR that was specifically made for the Marine Corps. This one's considered a 2006. It's kind of questionable as to what year it was actually built. And they only made them for a few years, and they kind of barely made them. Depending on who you ask, there's less than 300 of these in existence. So this is your classic David and Goliath story, and it's actually a pretty good story. It started with the military when they decided that they need motorcycles back on the field to help the troops out. And motorcycles have been used in the military since World War II, and most of them were Harley Davidson, which is why Harley, being the American motorcycle brand, decided that, of course, they're the perfect fit. Like, why wouldn't they get the contract to make motorcycles for America? Well, it wasn't that simple. So what Harley did was they licensed the British motorcycle with a Rotax engine and tried to use that as saying, like, this is the bike we're going to use for the military. In about a decade, they ended up with the MT500, which was not a bad motorcycle, but right when they were about to launch it and hopefully get the contract, the military said, we need everything to run on JP8 because, well, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. If everything else runs off of JP8, from jets to tanks to the Humvees and all that stuff, everything else runs off of JP8 except for motorcycles, they need a whole nother logistics crew or whatever just to supply the bikes. It's simpler to say, hey, make everything run off of JP8. Harley was out of luck. They spent about a decade working on this project, trying to get this thing done. Now they got to start from scratch. So the company that ended up beating out Harley Davidson for the contract was Hayes Diversified Technologies. And in the diesel motorcycle world, which is very, very, very small, it's a very small community, Fred Hayes was the guy. He not only holds the record for the fastest diesel motorcycle on the planet, he also holds the record for the highest miles per gallon of a diesel motorcycle on the planet, which is also, more than any gasoline motorcycle can do. One of the coolest things about this thing is how efficient it is. Worst case scenario, it's getting 80 miles to the gallon. Best case scenario, 95 miles per gallon, which is just crazy. And with the size of this ginormous fuel tank, around 6 gallons, you're looking at around 600 miles per tank. Now, if you're into trucks, you know that diesel trucks are the best. They make the most amount of power. They're the most efficient. Every semi-truck and tractor trailer out there is diesel, and they roll coal, and they sound, everything about them is just awesome. So to put a diesel in a motorcycle, it's a great idea. I love this motorcycle, but there's a problem. And here's why I think it failed. First, I love what they did. They did the most simplest thing. They took the most reliable, durable tank of a motorcycle, or tank of a dirt bike, which is the KLR 650, and they're like, we're gonna work on that platform. Let's put a diesel motor in it. So that's what they did. So they have the best starting point. The problem is, one, the military is kind of known that if we're not in war, that the vehicles, they're not doing anything. They're just sitting, and they sat for a long time without being started. This one has 471 miles on it, and I put half those miles on it myself. So the worst thing for a diesel engine is to sit. These things want to run. In reality, this thing could probably do a couple 100,000 miles on the original motor. It'd be better for it to be running than just sitting. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is that it was still kind of a prototype engine. So for anything to improve, you have to use it, and then you have to figure out what breaks, and then fix it, and then improve it. They never really got a chance to use it. There was a couple different models of it. I think like at least 2 or 3 different models of this thing of improvements, but only over a couple year span with not that many bikes. So they didn't really have that many data points. And then problem number 3 is when they wouldn't work, people would use the same type of concepts that they would use with, a motorcycle. Oh, the motorcycle's not working, it's not starting, it's cranking over. Well, let's throw some starter fluid in there. These are the same processes for a regular gas motorcycle on this, and that was a bad idea. Most likely what happened with this thing, we found out that if you put starting fluid in it and then tried to crank it over, it's very possible that it'll start backwards and things will break, and then you have problems. What you're supposed to do is start cranking it over and then spray some starter fluid in there so it's already cranking in the right direction. With a bike like this, when stuff breaks, I mean, they're not making them anymore. It's expensive. We actually had to, I bought this thing at an auction. They told me it ran. It did not run. It was very broken. And we had to track down one of the original engineers for the motor, fly this thing out to California, and then Craig the mechanic and the engineer, they actually took the engine apart and fixed it. But since then, we have learned the proper starting sequence and how to keep this thing running. I start it up every couple weeks just to make sure it's not sitting for too long, and I try to ride it every couple months. And I'm gonna show you that process in a second before we ride it. But what I love about this bike, and probably why I'm probably gonna keep it, but what I love about this bike and why I think everyone needs one of these is this is the perfect apocalypse motorcycle. Because one, it runs on multiple different fuels. It can run on kerosene, it can run on diesel, it can run on JP8. Those fuels are all over the place. So you have much more options of what you can run it on. Number two, it's EMP proof. So electromagnetic pulse, if someone sends a nuclear bomb up in outer space and it blows up, it's gonna destroy almost all of the electronics except for military spec stuff, which has circuitry or whatever that stops EMPs from disabling it. In that situation, this is still gonna run. Also, it's built off the KLR. Very reliable, tons of parts for it. And the next thing, the fact that it can do 600 miles in a tank is incredibly far. One tank of fuel can get you 600 miles. I mean, you know, that could be multiple states away. You know, 2 tanks of fuel can get you, from one side of the country to the other side of the country. It's pretty incredible. Which is the main reason why these bikes have been going up in value. There's a couple, when they first started getting released, no one really cared about them, which would have been a great time to buy one. Now, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, it's not unrealistic to pay for one of these things. And I predict they're gonna keep on going up because, like I said, they basically don't exist. And it's a very awesome concept. Now, they were working on a turbo kit that you would slap on here. I'm not sure if they ever get that wrapped up, but it's great. And I'd love to see more manufacturers do this and actually spend some real big money to make a turbo motorcycle, a turbo diesel, or just a diesel motorcycle, because, hey, that's fun. Let's take this thing for a spin. I'm dying to ride it. I know you guys are dying to see how it runs, and it is a really great bike to ride. All right, before I show you guys the starting sequence, let's do the words of wisdom, Psalm 56:3. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. All right, this is a pretty cool, here's what you do. First, make sure that's in the center. There's a decompression switch. Put that over here. Turn it on. Now you're watching that light. You only have a few seconds for it to work, but when that light comes off, you start. There you go. You start turning the engine with the starter, and then start tweaking the decompression, so it has enough compression to start. And it's somewhere around here for me, about maybe 3/4 of the way over. And then once it fires up, just take it off completely. So this is it. This is a diesel KLR. Now, a lot of people kind of complained about it. It was funny. Some people were complaining, like, man, it's got no power. It's just a dog. And I mean, the KLR 650 itself was never known for big power. I think it runs pretty good. It's one of the highest revving diesel engines I've ever heard of. I mean, it's showing, if this is right, which I assume it is, it's got a red line of 7,500 RPMs, which normally a diesel engine's red line at 3. It's also one of the smallest diesel engines I've ever encountered. It really just has, just all the time, just grunt, like, here, we'll go up this little hill real quick. Just all the low-end torque you could ever want on a bike like this. Now, I don't know what you need those other higher RPMs for, because it seems like once it gets past 4,000 RPMs, it's just not it's not accelerating anymore. It's not going any faster. So you might as well, you know, shift into a higher gear. Thank you for just pulling out in front of me. Now I don't know when my neutral light stopped working, but it was, I thought at one point in time it worked. Now if your bike is not a diesel and it sounds like this, you got a problem. You need to take that and get fixed. Because it really has that sound where, like, man, that thing is broken. What is wrong with it? Unless you know what a small diesel engine sounds like. We're not going to bother doing 0 to 60 because it's not fast. But let me... But it's not, I wouldn't say it's slow. There we go, we hit 50. But it's still pulling. Now, if you're buying your motorcycle due to how much vibration it has, you might be hard to beat the diesel KLR because it's got a lot of vibration. You know, it is a single cylinder diesel engine. There's nothing there to balance anything. I like it though. In terms of unique experiences of riding different motorcycles. What's going on here? Oh. Yeah, so in terms of unique experiences of riding different motorcycles that I think that you have to experience, you gotta jump on a diesel if you get the chance to, which most people, you know, don't. I had to buy one before I got the shot. I'd say go for it because it is a blast. Getting crazy over here. I say go for it because it is a blast to drive, and it's a very interesting experience. So it vibrates a lot. It's not super fast, but I'm not going to say it's slow. But where it excels in is off-road. It feels very at home off-road, going through trails, going through streams. If you guys saw the video, I took this thing up almost, you know, 3.5 feet. Not quite 4 feet of water, and it was doing it until it wasn't, and then I had to restart it. That was mostly because the battery was dead though. I mean, there's no reason that in the future we couldn't have smooth running, efficient diesel motorcycles getting 150 miles to the gallon, maybe even multiple cylinders that are just as smooth as, you know, a V-twin motorcycle is, that people love to ride and love to buy. And we can modify them and roll coal. Actually, that's getting a little more, the EPA is not really liking that these days. They're kind of cracking down on modifying vehicles, especially diesels. So would this be my first choice in terms of a supermoto build? No, it's far from it. Not only is it my last choice, but I would never do it. It's you know, it's not a great road vehicle. There's definitely worse out there, but it's just not what it was made for. And when it comes to a supermoto, you want that real snappy power that that this is not going to give you. Now, when I got this, the suspension was really bouncy, and what ended up happening with the rear shock is it was completely blown. So we put a new, I think progressive rear shock on it, and it works the way it should. It probably needs to be adjusted and tuned to my weight, but I doubt I'll ever do that. And just in case you're wondering, Sean, those are really nice gloves. This is actually the prototype gloves for the 508s. The first two gloves we ever got. I've been wearing them for about 4 or 5 years. It's the same glove that I drug my hand on the asphalt. That was actually this one right here. I love them. We had these made, one of the only gloves that's lined with Kevlar. I think these are the best gloves on the market. But check them out at bikesandbeardsgear.com. Every once in a while we have a limited edition where it's not black and they sell out really quick. We don't have anything right now, but maybe something coming up. But the black ones are classics, and I really do love them. So the mirrors vibrate too much. I really can't see anything. I can see if there's like a police car behind me. That's always good to know. And I can cruise pretty comfortably at, 50, maybe even, let me see if I can get to 60. Right now I'm going 45. It is I'd imagine this thing, it's not going to do 120. But I imagine you pushing it, I don't see why I couldn't do 80. Although I don't know if I want to be on this motorcycle doing 80 miles an hour. It looks like now that it's warmed up, the power does continue going up until at least 5,000 RPMs. It just takes a little bit longer to get there than what a gasoline vehicle would be. Alright, now we're cruising at 55 miles an hour. Feels great. We're in top gear at 4,000 RPMs. I'm having a hard time feeling my fingers, but hey, you don't need fingers when you're riding a diesel KLR. You don't need fingers when you're riding a diesel KLR. That's what I meant to say. So there are a few of these out there that are for sale, and some of them are out there for sale for a pretty good price. There's actually another one in Tennessee. I saw the guy trying to sell it for like $15,500. I probably should have bought that one before I bought this one and spent all this time and energy fixing this thing up. But I did not know. Guys, that wraps it up. This bike is a blast. If you want to see some more, if you want to see another video of some other cool bikes I was test driving,